Yay. All right. How you doing? All right.
You gonna hang around? Write down, hey, write down that. See what's in there? Write that down. He's on like this week 21. You go back to the ones that came before.
Is this 21 or 22? Did I not change that?
Hold on.
21.
It's 21,
Danny.
correct? What happened to mine? What happened to my cup?
Oh, I thought you said to dump it.
No, that was in the cup.
I'm not sure, but you did.
I wanted a fresh cup.
But I brought you chocolate.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. That's right. Yeah, 21.
It's 21? Okay.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right, let's grab your coffee and a seat here.
Still not
Did you unpause it? Okay.
All right, everybody. So let's see here. Jenny told me last week that we skipped a couple things in the fourth step, but I think she just missed a week. She said we didn't go over the sex part. We did, didn't we? Yeah. But I thought. Okay. So, okay. We're gonna have to go back to that. All right, everyone, I got some. Are you guys aware that you're not sitting in an AA meeting? I just want you to know that. Okay. Okay. Then let's finish up on the fifth step. Has anybody got any questions? Up
Yeah,
to
Danny,
everything
Zoom
we've
land
done?
has.
Huh?
Danny, I do. Dan, out
Yeah.
in Zoom land.
Hey, Dan.
I got a question on how you use, when you total up the columns in column 3, those sub columns.
Right.
You were talking about a dialogue on how you related these different categories to
Yes.
someone who's taken the fifth step. How do
Yes.
you do that?
So, okay. You guys hear his question? He's talking about the third column on the sheets and how that is tallied up and everything. So you got on column 3, Dan, you have a breakdown. You have 6 different columns in column 3, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you want to start with all the way on the left, which is what?
Self-esteem.
Self-esteem. And you want to go down and count all the checks that you have in that column. If you have 5 pages, you count them all. And then you go back to the first page and you put the total number on top there of self-esteem. And then the second part of the second column in column 3 is what? Relationships?
Personal, yeah, personal relationship.
Personal relationship. You're gonna do the same thing with that. You're gonna do the same thing with each of those 6 columns. You're gonna count all the check marks you have.
Mhm.
But before you do that, you want to go over it with some, if you're doing one of your sponsees, you want to go over it with him and make sure that you take out a check that doesn't need to be there or add a check that does need to be there. And then you're going to tally them up. And then the top number is going to be, if it's on your resentment list, that's going to show you where your anger stems from more than anything else.
Oh, okay, I see. Then you tie it up to the sheet that you're doing. If it was on one of the other sheets.
Yeah, you're just going to tally the resentment ones up.
Yeah,
And then-
okay.
And then you'll tally the fears up separately. And then the sexual conduct separately and the harms to others separately.
Gotcha.
You're going to do the same thing with each of the third columns but separate them, resentments, fears, sexual conduct, harms to others.
All right,
And
I
then
didn't
column
get-
5 is the same thing. You're gonna count your check marks, because what's happened is column 3 is gonna show you where your anger stems from the most, and then column 5 is gonna show you how you usually react when that happens. Does that make sense to everybody?
yes, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. Does that make sense, Dan?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Okay. Anybody else got a question on that before we go on? Make sense to you?
Say that again. What column is where your anger stems from?
Column 3.
Okay.
So you have 6 boxes in column 3. You have selfishness, right? What is this? No. Self-esteem,
Personal
personal relationships,
Material.
material
emotional.
security, emotional security, acceptable sex relations, and hidden sex relations. Those are all under column 3. And those are under your 3 basic instincts of life. So the social instinct has got 2 columns, the security instinct 2 columns, and the sexual instinct 2 columns. So you want to count your check marks and add them up. And then the total that you have on those 6 columns, the one with the highest amount, that's probably where when you get angry. Now, sometimes it's going to be very close. It might be, you might have 26 checks in personal relationships and 25 in emotional security. So, but those are going to be right where your anger comes from more than anything else. Does that make sense? And then on column 5, the totals on column 5 is going to be how you react when one of those things are interfered with. Thank you. Okay, it's it's very accurate. It's very accurate. Okay, anybody else got a question on that? And this way, if you follow that, you'll be able to pinpoint the exact nature of your wrong. All right, I believe we're on the bottom of page 73. The last paragraph. This is all we must be entirely honest with somebody if we expect to live long and happily in this world. Rightly and naturally, we think well before we choose the person or persons with whom to take this intimate and confidential step. Those of us belonging to a religious denomination, which requires confession, must, and of course, will want to go to the properly appointed authority whose duty it is to receive it. Though we have no religious connection, we may still do well to talk with someone ordained by an established religion. We often find such a person quick to see and understand our problem. Of course, we sometimes encounter people who do not understand alcoholics. So my experience is it's much better to do your fifth step with somebody that's in the program. But there's also a great reason to do it with a man in a cloth, because bound by confidence there. So you can feel free to talk without worry about that. Okay, it says if we cannot or would not or wouldn't rather not do this, we search our acquaintances for a closed-mouth, understanding friend. Perhaps our doctor or psychiatrist would be the right person. It may be one of our own family, but we cannot disclose anything to our wives or parents which will hurt them and make them unhappy. We have no right to save our own skin at another person's expense. Such parts of our story we tell to someone who will understand, yet be unaffected. So right there, it's letting you know that you can use more than one person to do your fifth step. Okay. And the rule is that we must be hard on ourselves, but always considerate of others. Let's go over to the next page, 75. When we decide who's to hear our story, we waste no time. We have a written inventory and we're prepared for a long talk. We explain to our partner what we're about to do and why we have to do it. He should realize that we are engaged upon a life and death errand. Most people approached in this way will be glad to help. They will be honored by our confidence. We pocket our pride and go for it, illuminating every twist of character, every dark cranny of the past. Once we have taken this step, withholding nothing, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. The feeling that the drink problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we're on a broad highway walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. Now, again, that may not be that was not my experience. I shared with you after I did my fist, I was very paranoid for months after that. I didn't feel at peace with myself and one with the world. But there came a time that I did. And I can't tell you when that was, but it happened. A lot of people do get that relief immediately, though. So that's what we just read is really the fifth step promises. Now there's 8 things that the book suggests that you do. 8 things. The first one is returning home. We find a place where we can be quiet for an hour, carefully reviewing what we have done. The second thing is we thank God from the bottom of our heart that we know him better. And then the third thing is taking this book down from my shelf, dusting it. Oh, don't say that. We turn to the page which contains the 12 steps. The fourth thing is carefully reading the first 5 proposals. We ask if we have omitted anything, for we are building an arch through which we shall walk a free man at last. And then the fifth thing is our work solid so far? The sixth thing is, are the stones properly in place? And the seventh thing is, have we skimped on the cement put into the foundation? And the eighth was, have we tried to make mortar without sand? Now, what does all that mean? Obviously, he's given an analogy of building a house to which you are doing a personal inventory of yourself. And that's what he's relating it to. So if you look at his comments here, he's asking you to really go over the first 5 steps and see if you've been honest, real honest. And if you've skimped, how do we skimp? Well, I might not share something in my 5th step that maybe you won't think good of me, and I'll try to make it sound better than really what it was. You know, and we go into our 5th step, and again, we try to save our ass and our face at the same time. And that never works. And this is what he's asking us to look at. Did we do these things properly? Have we done these first 5? And the first step, have I full-heartedly, fully conceded to my innermost self? Did I make a relationship with the God? And am I, in the 3rd step, am I convinced that any life run on self-will could hardly be a success? And in the 4th step, I take a look at, did a fearless and moral inventory. Did I do those things? And then was I honest in my 5th step? Okay. So, and that concludes step 5. So any questions on that? So now here's we come to a big confusion now and misunderstanding now. And that is on steps 6 and 7, where most people think you don't have anything to do here. It's God's job. And you'll hear that a lot in meetings. It's God's job to remove the defects, not yours. Doesn't say that. The steps don't say that. Okay. So on top of page 76, if we can answer to our satisfaction, he's talking about what we just said in the 5th step. We then look at step 6. We have emphasized willingness as being indispensable. We're now ready to let God remove from us all the things which we have admitted are objectionable. Okay. Can he now take them all, every one? If we still cling to something, we will not let go. We ask God to help us be willing. So over here, it's saying that if Are we ready to let God remove us from us all the things? So it's not saying that God is going to remove these things. It's asking us if we're ready to have God remove these things. It's a big difference. Okay. And that's the difference there is where people make the mistake and think they don't have to do nothing. Actually, let's go to page 59 and read the sixth step. It says, we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. Okay. It doesn't say that God removes these defects of character. It says that we were entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. The seventh step says, humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. Doesn't say that he's going to remove our shortcomings. It just tells us that we need to be in a humble position to have God do that. Okay. So it's important because in 6 and 7, if I don't do any work, then I'm not showing God that I'm entirely ready. I think the key word in step 6 is entirely. Entirely ready. I can say I'm entirely ready and act completely differently. Act the way that's got nothing to do with that. So this here is this is the meat of the program, people, because let's go to the 12 and 12 for a minute. If you have this 12 and 12 with you, page 63, step 6 in the 12 and 12. The first thing it says here is that this is the step that separates the men from the boys or the women from the girls. Okay. So this is the step that separates the men from the boys. So why is it saying that? People like us, when we get here and we get to this point in our recovery, we don't really want to grow up. We don't really want to grow up. And you'll learn as you stick around here is that people really don't want to get well. It's, you know, they say they want to get well. And this goes to anything, whether it's alcohol or drugs or anything that people deal with. People really don't want to get well because getting well is painful. Getting well requires work. And I just want, you know, I just want to say I want to get well and kind of mean it. But I'm certainly not entirely ready to get well because entirely ready means things I have to do. And that's the important thing. Don't forget this in step 6 when we talk about step 6. So everybody thinks that change, because this is all about change, right? And everybody thinks that change is based on what you're going to get. Right? If I change, if I do this, if I give this up, if I start doing this, then what am I going to get? That's a natural kind of thought, isn't it? That's pretty common for everybody. If I'm going to change, if I'm going to give this up, if I'm going to do this stuff and not do this stuff, then what's in it for me? What am I going to get? That's an honest question, isn't it? But this step is not about what I'm going to get. This step is entirely about what am I willing to let go of? What am I willing to let go of? That's what this step is about, not what's in it for me if I change. The book we just read uses the word objectionable, right? I'm going to give you a good example of objectionable. Long time ago, I don't remember if I was going into the shower or coming out of the shower, but I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror and I really gained a lot of weight. And that was objectionable to me. I didn't like what I saw in the mirror. So now I have few choices. I can get to like it, I can ignore it, or I can do something about it, right? Because it was objectionable. So if if you're trying to lose weight now, okay, if you want to lose weight, well, what do you have to, you can't just say, God, make me lose 20 pounds and pray for God to make me lose 20 pounds. That doesn't happen.
You could.
You could.
It doesn't work.
You could. It don't work.
It's not my time.
So in order to lose weight, you have to, in this situation that I'm talking about, I have to deny myself some things and force myself with some other things. And that's exactly what steps 6 and 7 are. We're going to slay the defect with non-action. And we're going to change the defect with action. So step 6 is we're going to slay the defect in step 6 with non-action. And step 7, I'm going to change that defect to something positive with action. I'm going to deny myself because I like to, I like to look in the mirror and go, oh God, that's objectionable. And then I'll have a piece of 7-layer cake, or a pound of pasta, So if it's really objectionable to me and I'm entirely ready to do something about that, then I have to not eat that cake or not eat that whole pound of pasta. And I have to make myself eat something else. An apple or something, right? Some broccoli, right? Something healthy, right? So, but that's the process. And that's the exact same process that we do here with step 6. I have to deny, I don't do what I want to do in 6, and in 7, I make myself do what I don't want to do. Very good. Step 6 is diet, step 7 is exercise. I like that.
The second part of slay the defect.
I don't do what I want to do, and then I make myself do what I don't want to do. And you know what that is? That's change.
That's not how you worded it. Said
Yeah, you.
slay the defect.
Defects, there's no action, and we're gonna replace it with correct action.
Oh, you're talking about the slaying the defect part? You slay the defect with non-action. You change the defect with action. So you don't do what you want to do. You make yourself do what you don't want to do. And in that process, you will change.
Non-action.
Change the defect with non-action. No, slay the defect with non-action and change the defect with action. That's 6 and 7. So, or if you will, diet in step 6 and exercise in step 7. Just something I came up with. I don't know.
Sure now.
I heard it somewhere. Yeah. Yeah. So, is that making sense to everybody though? Because this is important stuff, because our natural way of thinking and acting and being is, okay, if I make myself do this, then what am I going to get? So if I'm looking at myself and I want to lose weight, then I'm thinking, oh, I'm going to get skinnier. And that's not correct thinking though. The correct thinking should be, I just need to lose some weight. I need to let go of some of this weight. So this is all about, what am I willing to let go of? Not what am I willing to get?
And I think, anyway, and most people, it's like what you said, it's like, what am I gonna get? I mean, we want something now. Like, I hear a lot of people get sober and they're like, and me too, I just expected everybody just to, love me again, and just all of this, without doing any type of work. And then God takes time, allowing that time and
Yeah.
this process.
Yeah, you don't screw your family around for 20 years and then you have 3 months and you think, oh, why don't they give me their car? I don't understand.
Would the idea being of what am I gonna get me the promises of? I mean, yeah, I'll put in the work. I'll be glad to do the work, but at the end of the work, I would like some changes. I would like things to be better. It sounds like that's what the promises are. You do these, you're painstaking,
Yeah,
and all that,
yeah,
then
but,
you get this.
right, but I'm talking about how extreme we are that I'm not gonna do anything unless first I gotta figure out what's in it for me. All right?
Yeah.
That's usually I don't know about you, but that was my MO. You know, whatever I'm gonna do, I have to first figure out, okay, what's in it for me?
Yeah.
And then, and then okay,
Not just do
if
it
the
for me,
payoff is
so-
good enough, yeah, I'll
Right.
do it. But so what I want you to understand is that kind of thinking is not what this step is about. If that's somebody, tell them I'm in a meeting. That's not what this step is about. This step is about denying the bad stuff.
Understand what you're saying. Good.
Okay,
Good deal.
yes,
Also, I mean, if I'm looking at it, what's in for me and I'm focused on the promises, what happens if I don't get them exactly the way that I think I should?
right,
I'm setting myself up, like
Yeah.
you talked about at the very beginning of all
yeah.
this.
Yeah.
Weeks about.
Is this for a friend?
No,
Oh.
my experience, this point is work, filled out thing.
Oh, yeah,
I was tired
Yeah.
of who I saw in here,
yeah,
and I didn't want to be that.
yeah.
So it's
Pain is a good motivator.
about just having a gut full of being
Yeah,
all of the defects.
pain's a good motivator.
And that's what I hear with people who are really successful with staying sober. Is that is really like what you're saying was like, I'm not trying to get my car back. I'm not trying to get the close to like, to not go to, I'm trying to get things. It's like
Yeah.
you're saying of like, I don't want this pain. I want it to go away.
Yeah. Ironically, though, those things that you're not trying to get, you wind up getting.
Yeah.
Right.
But if that's your goal, it's like going to an H&I meeting. Does everybody know what an H&I meeting is? Hospitals and institution. A lot of people go to them and they'll tell you, oh, you need to go to them because it helps you stay sober. That's not the purpose to go to an H&I meeting. The purpose to go to an H&I meeting is to carry the message to the people that can't come to a meeting. Period. Now, if you get a little something from that, good for you.
Right.
So, and another thing, like you were just sharing, is that the what do you call those? What do you call those things that got a word like honesty, principles that they have? Well, I'm thinking about sometimes you'll walk into a clubhouse and you'll see the 12 principles on the wall. There's one for each step. But if you call the world office up and ask them about the principles, they tell you that that's not AA. That's not AA. Now, you'll get if you do this deal, you'll get a lot of principles as a byproduct of that. You'll get honest and integrity and all these things, but that's, the reason why we don't have that as a principle for a step is, you may do the third step and what is that? Courage? Oh, faith, courage, something like that, right? So, and you still may not gain anything in the courage field, and you think, well, I didn't do the step right.
Right.
And so these principles are byproducts of living right. That's all they are. They're not to go with a step. They're not AA approved. Okay. Let me ask you a question. Does anybody know? Not if you've been here and done this before. But
Like I was remembering.
Melissa, does anybody know how a lobster grows? Huh? It doesn't shed his skin,
Or a shell.
his shell. But how does he do that? See, a lobster's shell doesn't expand. So he can grow so far into that shell. And then he gets really uncomfortable because his skin is pressing against the shell and he needs to get rid of the shell. And so he goes down deep into some rocky terrain and he gets in between some rocks in a real tight place and he wiggles and moves around until the shell comes off. See, it's a painful, stressful place, but is necessary for the lobster to grow. The lobster cannot grow without going through that stressful, painful period and shed his shell. Once the shell sheds his shell, it's like, I can't say that 5 times fast. But once he sheds his shell, he then grows a new shell. And he can live a certain amount of years into that shell, and then he outgrows that shell. Go ahead.
I just find like interesting, because it's probably very vulnerable right after he sheds the shell.
Very vulnerable. Yes. And so are we.
Yeah.
Painful and vulnerable.
We're raw.
Yeah.
We're raw when we start going through this stuff. You know. No, we're not nearly as good with butter as the lobster. So the idea then.
Well, I think.
Okay, so, but that's a good example of what we have to go through. We have to shed our shell. Shed our shell. Yeah. So all the change that comes about through God working in our lives is by our consent and our permission. I said all the change that comes about through God working in our lives is by our consent and our permission. All the change that comes about through God working in our lives comes through our consent and our permission. No, thanks. I'm good. All the growth that happens through our will and our consent. We have to make that decision, and we have to become willing and ready. I think I shared with you before, maybe not, I don't remember, but I know I've shared it many times in many places. I know I shared it with you guys, but my understanding of God, my relationship with God is, to me, God is such a gentleman that he's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. Think about that for a minute. And God is such a gentleman, he's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. What does that mean? No, that doesn't mean that at all. He's never going to interfere in my life where I don't want him to. So the blockage there is not God. The blockage is me. So I could be on my knees and praying for something and then get off my knees and undo that prayer with my actions. And my God is such a gentleman, he doesn't think about what I prayed, he thinks about what I'm doing. And he says, okay, Danny, go ahead. I'm not gonna, he's such a gentleman, he's not going to interfere. And he allows me to be wrong. And he allows me to do wrong. And he allows wrong to happen as a consequence, as a natural result of that, as a natural result of those actions, okay? So he's not going to interfere in my life. So this is not about what I think and what I pray. This is about what I do. The lobster could have went to a psychiatrist and got on the couch and told them that, you know, I'm just very uncomfortable in life, you know, and he wouldn't have got any relief. The lobster could have went down in the water and prayed that God do something for him, but he wouldn't have got any relief. He had to go into the rocks and into that stressful, painful place to get where he wanted to go. So what I do is telling God what I really want. Not what I think, not what I pray, not what I say. What I do. My actions tell God what I really want. And God, now this is just my belief. You know, I'm just sharing this with you. I'm not telling you have to believe this way. We all have our own higher power, and whatever works for you is fine. I'm just sharing with you what works for me and what got me to where I'm at today is understanding this and believing this and living this way and thinking, okay, so God is going to allow me to do whatever I want to do. And when I wasn't even in AA for a week. And I met some guys that I knew from the streets from years ago in a meeting one time. And one of them said to me, Danny, I'm going to tell you, you could do anything you want in this program, as long as you're willing to face the consequences of your actions. I understood that because I lived that way my whole life. When I was standing in front of the judge, I never told the judge, no bullshit, no lie. He said, you got anything to say for yourself? No. Give me what you're gonna give me, and that's that, right? So again, it's important that it's only with our consent and our permission that we allow God into our lives. So whatever you practice, you become good at. Whether it's baseball, piano, yes.
Yeah, that goes on the same act that a friend of mine, young, said he bottomed out on his finger, get bottomed out, go like this. And I've noticed that once I bottom out, whatever he does this, he wrote it down 100 times. I said, that's where it goes. It's better.
Yeah, that's a good point. We bottom out on our drinking way before we bottom out on our old ideas. But that's why the book says what it says. It says that some of these we don't want to let go. We don't want to change. Why? The book says we like them too much, or love them. So, but it's just one thing at a time. It's one thing at a time. And I have to learn to change the way I think, because my solution to everything in life was always go at it harder, right? If I'm trying to get the square to fit in the circle and it won't fit, you know what I really need? I need one of those little sledgehammers. I'll get that sucker in there, right? I'll make it fit, right? So I just try harder, right? There's an old story about a guy that had 2 horses, and he sends his son lives far away, and he sends an email to his son. He says, I'm just having so much trouble with these 2 horses. I can't tell one from the other. And when I call them, they both come, and he says, so I cut the mane off for one horse, but it grew back. And then a week or so went by, and he sent another email to his son. He says, you know what? He says, I dyed the tail of one gray, but it grew out. And he says, so I'm just having, and then about a month later, he got an email. He sent an email to his son. He said, I finally figured out the difference. The black horse is 2.5 inches taller than the white horse. Stupid, right? How many times have you done something like that in your life? Where the answer is right there, dead smack in your face, but you don't see it because you're looking for what you got in your head and not what's in front of you. All right. So I first have to, and that's why we go through this process. Step 1, step 2, step 3. If we don't do these steps properly, and the way the book is suggesting that we do them, we go to step 4 kind of lost. We do step 5, maybe okay. And now 6 and 7 is, I really don't realize what I'm doing here. And so we don't get the full benefit of things because we're looking at it all the wrong way. Going back to the 12 and 12. Talks a lot about the basic instincts here. Page 65 in the 12 and 12, he says, since most of us are born with an abundance of natural desires, it isn't strange that we often let these far exceed their intended purpose. When we talked about this, when we talked about the 3 basic instincts of life, remember? When they drive us blindly or willfully demand that they supply us with more satisfactions or pleasures than are possible or due us, that is the point at which we depart from the degree of perfection that God wishes us for us here on earth. That is the measure of our character defects, or if you wish, our sins. So what he's saying here is, we talked about this when we went over the 3 basic instincts of life, how we warp them and take them out of the God-given right that we had for them, that the reason God gave us these things. And I think, me personally, that step 6 and step 7 is probably the most profound writing that we have in all of our books. Go to bottom page 66 if you have your 12 and 12. Next to last paragraph, it says, we who have escaped these extremes, and he's talking about nobody wants to be a braggart or a thief or, bad enough to kill somebody or go to jail. We who have escaped these extremes are apt to congratulate ourselves. Yet can we? After all, hasn't it been self-interest, pure and simple, that has enabled most of us to escape? Not much spiritual effort is involved in avoiding excesses which will bring us punishment anyway. All right. So I want to steal, but not enough where I'm going to go to jail. I want to fool around, but not enough where the wife's going to catch me. All of these things, right? He says, but when we face up to the less violent aspects of these very same defects, then where do we stand? That's a great question to ask yourself. Now listen to this. What we must recognize now is that we exult in some of our defects. We really love them. Who, for example, doesn't like to feel just a little superior to the next fellow, or even quite a lot superior? Isn't it true that we like to let greed masquerade as ambition? To think of liking lust seems impossible. But how many men and women speak love with their lips and believe what they say so they can hide lust in the dark corner of their minds? That's pretty deep there. And even while staying within conventional bounds, many people have to admit that their imaginary sex excursions are apt to be all dressed up as dreams of romance. Self-righteous anger also can be very enjoyable. In a perverse way, we can actually take satisfaction from the fact that many people annoy us, for it brings a comfortable feeling of superiority. This is how warped we are, right? Gossip, barbed with our anger, a polite form of murder by character assassination, has its satisfactions for us too. Here we are not trying to help those we criticize. We're trying to proclaim our own righteousness. And then it talks about gluttony and all of these things. There's some pretty powerful writing there. What is that? So if you want to change what you do, or you want to you don't want to do what you normally do, what you want to do, okay? And then you make yourself do what you don't want to do. And that's the change that we talked about. That's how you change. Most people cling to what they are, even though they don't like it. It's painful, but they're familiar with it. So we stay stuck in the mire because we're familiar with it. And there's a comfortable feeling of something that I'm familiar with. So let me ask you this, again, for the new people that haven't been through this. If you want to get a new car, what's the first thought that you have to, what's the first thing you have to do? First thing you have to think or believe? Money. Where am I going to get the money from, right? How much I got to spend? Where's it going to come from? All of that stuff, right? But the real first thought is really not about the money or nothing else. It's about does this car that I have not going to work for me anymore? See, do I really need a new car? You know, because we're like, this is, you know, you can have a 15-year-old car and it's falling apart. Well, we kind of think, you know what? I just get an oil change and put some new tires on this baby, and I could drive it for a couple more years, right? Yeah, it's like going through your closet and picking out a shirt that you know ain't gonna fit you no more, but you don't want to get rid of it. So the first thing you got to do if you want to get a new car is realize that the old car just ain't gonna work no more. And if you want to get a new life, you got to realize that this old life just ain't gonna work no more. You got to be like the lobster. You got to get ready to shed that shell so you can grow. So there's a lot to this step. And it's not so easy as the book got a paragraph on step 6 and a paragraph on step 7. And that's about all it has on there. And, you know, don't have a lot of direction to go with it. Because it's old man Joe from Joe and Charlie said it was a pick and shovel step. You just got to pick and dig and pick and dig, and you don't need directions for that. Shovel in the store don't come with directions. You just got to dig and pick, and what we're doing in AA is this is the process: uncover, discover, discard. Uncover, discover, discard. That's the process.
What was it?
Uncover, discover, discard. That is the process of what we need to be doing here. Uncover, discover, discard. Find out what I really got. We did that in 4 and 5. And then what I need to get rid of. Not what I need to be getting in play, but what I need to get rid of. Now, the thing just said that, the book just said that we don't want to get rid of some of these things because we really love them. Well, why do we love things that are causing us pain and causing other people's heartaches? And why we love these things? We're used to them, and we're not very right here in the head. Huh? Yeah, next time it's going to be better. That's our biggest lie. You know, whether it's drugs or anything else, this time it'll be different, right? But
It's justifying.
yeah, so if you take a little kid, here's the example. Take a little 3-4-year-old kid, and every day you take him outside and you practice basketball with him. You teach him how to dribble the ball, and you got a little goal up this big, and he can throw the ball up into, right? And you're teaching him that every day, an hour, every day. Little 3-4-year-old kid. When he becomes a teenager, a young man, he's not going to be playing hockey. He's going to play basketball. Because that's what has been drilled into him. And we are what we do. We aren't. I hear people say we are what we think. No, we're not. No, we're not. Because I never thought about being a bad father. I never thought about being a bad husband. I loved my wife. I loved my children, or so I thought. And I never went in front of the judge and he sentenced me on what I thought. Everybody in life judges us on what we do, not what we think. Because we're a whole room full of really nice people, how most of us think.
My questions, Anthony.
Well, okay. I was
You're on the edge there.
I was trying to be kind, lad. But intentionally, yeah, you know. But let me put it like, compared to what we do, they're night and day. Because we're not a room full of good people in the things we do, or what we used to do. So we're going to be judged in life on what we do. So we have to understand first, what do I got? What am I working with here? What is objectionable to me? Now, some people come to recovery because their wife or their husband or their mother or their father or their sister or their brother or their kids or the judge or somebody tells them to get their ass in recovery and change their life. And they come into the room. That's fine. I don't care how you got here. But I think we said this way back in the first step. Any condition you have on your sobriety, you have no sobriety at all. All you have is that condition thereof. That's very important to remember that. Any condition you have on sobriety, you have no sobriety at all. You only have that condition thereof. So once that condition is met, what do you need to be here for? So you don't have any sobriety if you're here with any condition to being here. It's okay that you're here. We hope you come back, but you have to come back eventually at a point where you're here because you want to get rid of what's going on in your life. You really, what's happening in your life has become objectionable. And you want to change that. Okay, not about what am I going to get? What am I going to let go of? What am I going to give up? What am I going to change? Okay. So as we stop doing these things that we want to do in step 6, and we make ourselves do the things we don't want to do in step 7, as we practice this, we start getting benefits. And the benefits are actually a new thought process, new thought patterns, right? And they bring us different returns than we've always gotten. And over time, we'll notice that these new ideas and these new thought patterns are becoming more and more commonplace for us. And the old ideas that we used to act out on become less and less. And I heard this the first week I was sober. And it didn't make any sense to me. But if you don't like what you're getting, stop doing what you're doing. Practice different things, get different results. Over 30 years later, I could tell you, I understand it, and it makes a hell of a lot of sense. If you don't like what you're getting, stop doing what you're doing. Practice different things, get different results. And one of the things for me that didn't change much was the results that I got were good. And being the good alcoholic I am, and the good selfish drunk that I was, if it was good, I liked it. I wanted more. And so, hey, wait a minute. Why am I feeling so good? And why is everything, not so insane and so crazy anymore? And take a look at what I'm doing in life. Oh, I guess this AA thing, this CA thing got something to do with it. Let me do some more. I didn't get sober and plan on being here all these years later. That was never in my thought process. Never in my thought process. I never thought I'll do this for the next 40 or 50 years. I just said, let me get this gorilla off my back. Because I had a big old gorilla on my back. You know what a big old gorilla on your back does? Any damn thing he wants. Because you are powerless over a big old gorilla on your back. So, that's what, my life had become very objectionable. And, all right, so really, and I say this all the time, when I got sober, 50 people around me got well. It's amazing. They didn't even go to a damn meeting. Everybody in my life got better when I got sober. I don't know how that happens, but it works like that. And there was a guy here before a meeting, it was right before you got here, Barry, that he used to live across the street diagonally from me. The black guy and a white wife that used to live near my house on 34. Remember him? He was just here. He's got like 30 days sober or something. But he was talking about, we used to have parties with 40, 50 people there. And he came over one day thinking, oh, I'll have a nice drink. And this was 20 something years ago. He came over thinking I'll have a nice drink. And there was 40, 50 of us having a barbecue, a pool party, and not a damn thing to drink, but no booze and no beer. He said, no booze, no beer, no drugs. And you guys were all having fun, he said. So, yeah. All right. We've got 5 minutes left. Anybody got any questions? There's a couple more things I want to do. We're going to finish 6 and 7 next week, and we're going to be knocking the rest of these steps off here. Anybody got any questions? John?
You said all the growth. I will.
I don't remember what I said.
I mean, John was talking.
A mature moment.
A mature moment, yeah. I know I said that all God working in our life comes through our consent
And our permission.
and our permission.
Growth comes from our will and consent.
Growth comes from what?
Will and consent.
Our will and our consent. Growth comes from our will and our consent. From change. Okay. Okay. That works for me.
That sounded better.
Yeah. Anybody online got a question?
I don't see any hands.
Nobody got any questions? Everybody got this note up and figured out? Now, we got 5 minutes left. Somebody wants to talk about something?
You can't just. Education. That's
All right, we
not-
got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna read something for you. Okay. Where is it? Here it is. Okay. So I don't know if you've heard this one before, but it's a, are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? Ever heard this one? Are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? A young woman went to her grandmother and told her about her life and how things were so hard. She didn't know how she was going to make it and wanted to give up. She was tired of fighting and struggling. It seemed that as one problem was solved, a new one arose. Her grandmother took her to the kitchen. Is that what they do? She filled 3 pots with water and placed each on a high flame. Soon the pots came to a boil. In the first pot, she placed carrots. In the second pot, she put eggs. In the last pot, she put coffee beans, ground coffee beans. She let them sit and boil without saying a word. In about 20 minutes, she turned off the burners. She fished the carrots out and placed them in a bowl. She then pulled the eggs out, placed them in a bowl, and then she ladled the coffee out and placed it in a bowl. Turning to her granddaughter, she asked, "Tell me what you see." The granddaughter said, "Carrots, eggs, and coffee." And she brought her closer and told her to feel the carrots. She did and noted that they were soft. She then asked her to take an egg and break it. She did. After pulling off the shell, she observed the hard-boiled egg. Finally, she asked her to sip the coffee. She sipped it. Tasted good. The grandmother then asked, "And what does it mean?" And she explained to her that each of the objects had faced the same adversity. Boiling water. But each reacted differently. The carrot went in strong, hard, and unrelenting. However, after being subjected to the boiling water, it softened and became weak. The egg had been fragile. Its thin outer shell had protected its liquid interior, but after sitting through the boiling water, its inside had become hardened. The ground coffee beans were unique, however. After they were in the boiling water, they changed the water. So as the grandmother asked her, which are you? When adversity knocks at your door, how do you respond? Are you a carrot, an egg, or a coffee bean? And which am I? When adversity and hard times come, do I fall apart? Do I get hard and shut down inside? Or do I learn to change the circumstances that's going on in my life? Are you an egg, a carrot, or a coffee bean? That's a good one. All right. So we'll finish this off next week, same time, same channel. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Danny.
See you guys.
Yeah. That was a good one.
See all you coffee beans next week.
Thank you.
Denny.